attacking her, and he was vilified by everyone. The only reason he was vilified was because of her tears. That was the genius of her tears.
So what did the tweet say? Do you know what the tweet said or something?
It was more criticism of yet another failure, and he was just he was stepping on someone down, and people vilified him for it.
Would that have happened if it was a guy?
Difficult to know. I mean, for instance, President Reagan was very good. He didn't cry, but he stuttered and looked uncomfortable and made you want to.
Yeah, but he had 2 terms though, didn't he?
He had 2 terms, but what he did is he would apologise to the nation, and he would say, "Gee, guys, I boobed," words to that effect.
In what sense? I thought he actually was quite a good president. For the majority part.
I don't know the exact occasions, but there were a couple of times where he actually had guts to go on national TV and behave like that. People coo-cooed all over him, wanted to wrap him in cotton wool.
Yeah, I mean, he's an old guy back then either. Well, actually, he's probably no older than Donald Trump is right now, and whoever's going to come in and do things. But there was a few people who voted for Lib Dems, I think, during the European election as well. So, and I think the Tories were 5th, and I think in some ways her resigning now was in some ways to even save some of the embarrassment of what's going to happen in the European elections, because it's anticipated that they're going to be about 5th, even behind the Green Party.
Wow.
Which is, was inconceivable just a couple of years ago.
Did you vote?
I did.
What did you vote?
I'm not saying.
I'll say if you say.
No.
Go on. You didn't vote Brexit. You did not vote Brexit, did you? Admit it.
Sorry, I'm not saying anything.
I voted Brexit.
I'm not committing to that.
Okay.
This is available for everyone to hear. I'm not saying that. All the 5 listeners that we have.
Authenticity.
No, it's not authentic. The thing is, there's a reason why the vote is private, and I'm keeping it private at this stage.
I respect that.
But I mean, I made it very clear.
We made it clear that the EU is a price-fixing cartel without any or hardly any form of democratic process.
That's pretty much collapsing. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot. It's actually been interesting because I think there's going to be a lot of Brexiteers, even from several other countries, that are going to be monopolising that. So it's going to be an interesting one to see how they're going to manage it.
I think there is space for a new European order, but it's going to need a lot of chaos and be prepared to wipe out debts. For instance, debts to Greece and Italy need to be wiped out because they were dishonest in the first place. And I saw a brilliant talk.
What do you mean they were dishonest? I mean, there was a level of dishonesty. I'll accept that, but the thing is, there's also a level of accountability that Greece have got to be able to take.
No, because it's called irresponsible lending. So you have a responsible lender. So it's illegal to be an irresponsible lender, basically, and by putting people into a perpetuity of servitude is immoral and illegal. And I saw a great discussion with Varoufakis, the ex-economic minister of Greece, and one of the speakers there said that the Greeks were corrupt and should be thrown in prison. And he said you better stop right there because you know more than anyone. And the way he said you know more than anyone, that the Euro bankers are also corrupt and should be thrown in prison, and it shut him up immediately. So the fact is, it is a price-fixing cartel. It is self-serving. One of the phrases that Varoufakis was told was that they cannot allow democratic process to get in the way of policy. Okay, that was their words. Democratic process wasn't allowed to get in the way of policy. And the Eurogroup, which is a group of the finance ministers, is an unofficial group and has no legal control over it. Imagine that. They can do and say what they want.
Well, I think we've been in for an exciting few days, I think, or a couple of months actually, I think. But June the 10th is going to be a new leadership election. So, we'll see another European election, the Tories, and then they're going to have to deal with more different people.
I have a theory, by the way, about Boris Johnson pulled out at the last moment because Gove switched on him the last time he was trying to be leader. Well, there were some mutterings about Boris Johnson and dalliances with females, shall we say. And I suspect that something was about to come out if Boris Johnson made a real bid for Prime Minister. And I think Gove, his friend, switched sides on purpose at his request to give him an excuse to drop out.
I'm not sure you'd have done that, actually. I don't think much of Michael Gove, to be honest. I think he's a bit of a weasel.
But that's the whole point. He is clearly not suitable, and by him throwing his cap in the ring, I mean, he's not stupid. He knows he's not suitable. Nobody would, in a million years, think of him as a possible Prime Minister.
No, but he does give him exposure.
Sorry?
It does give him exposure.
It does give him exposure.
Because his CV says he ran for the leadership party, head of the leadership party. So it does give them a little bit of exposure to come out of the open. I mean, there's a lady called Esther McVeigh who's come out, and I actually, the first time I saw her, I actually really quite liked her. And then I heard, and she's quite hard, she's quite strong in some ways. And then when she opened her mouth, I'm thinking, oh, that's not enough for the public to buy into.
Who's the guy who's the ex-prison minister?
I know what he looks like. His name will come to me in a
Talks
minute.
in a high-pitched nasal voice.
Oh, I can't remember, to be honest. I can't remember. It'll come to me before the end of this.
The guy who says he spent, 150 days walking through Nicaragua or something like that, and on the basis of that he interpreted his whole life and has decided that no politician delivers on what they say. I wonder where he came up with that from.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, no one ever delivers on what they say. So I mean, it's interesting.
Well, you know what? They can't, because it's impossible. Once you're Prime Minister or President, that's why they hate their jobs. Because everything's blocked. You have to get it through Parliament, which is why the democracy is a complete farce, just as justice is.
Yeah, well, I was watching Question Time on Thursday, and there was a guy called Simon Jordan on there who's a businessman. I mean, I remember him when he used to. It was in the heyday in the sort of early 1990s of the mobile phone revolution, I think, and I think he made his money with the one phone shop or something like that, and then he became chairman of Crystal Palace. He's now listed as a businessman. But he actually said something really interesting, and I've never really liked him. I find him quite arrogant and quite rude, and in most cases. But he actually surprised me as how articulate he was on Question Time, and he said something very interesting. He says in America they have a president who is a leader with no politics, and in the UK we actually have politics with no true leaders, and that's where the problem is. And he used the word planning as well.
He used the word
planning. It's about there was never any clear strategy. It was almost such a reactive thing we were looking to do, and she just attempted to get something through. And some people said actually it's almost as like we lost the war, and we got even a worse deal for someone who'd surrendered.
What does leader with no politics mean?
He's not a politic. I think that's how he described it. Basically, he's a leader, but he's got no political he's got no political expertise, and he
doesn't need to.
No.
See, but
the thing is, but saying that, it's also costing him because of that. So while he's got these strong leadership things and he's doing things with Russia, he's also not playing nice with others. And in politics, you've also got to learn to play nice with others.
Which is what's ludicrous, isn't it? Because you shouldn't have to do that. You should just get on with your job.
And I think, and that's what this Simon Jordan was referring to.
You see,
I believe that's what he was referring to.
That's a very good point, and I think it's also facilitated by the different structures. So when a new president is sworn in, the entire administration changes, so that the Americans don't have a civil service as such. They take their entire staff with them, whereas in England, the entire civil service stays in place and views politicians as a mild hindrance than anything else. Which is why here we've got politics with no leadership, because again we don't need it. The civil service are running the place, whereas in the States you have the leadership with no politics, because they actually have their own admin staff, their own civil service, irrespective of politics.
Actually, there's also a case of I think in the last week I saw, because the Ukrainian elections were recent, weren't they? And it was a comedian who actually won in the Ukraine. And when he actually went to be sworn in, he declared a snap election. What's all that about? You haven't heard about that?
I didn't hear of a snap election, but an election top of election.
Yeah, a snap election. After he's just won, he's about to be sworn in, and I think he gets sworn in, and then he calls a snap election.
What were the results of the snap election?
I don't know. I think it's just it's a snap election. Only the last week, so we're yet to find that. So I'll be intrigued to find out what's happening there. I mean,
maybe
he just ran for a laugh and didn't really want to become leader.
He ran for a laugh, or maybe he decided that the winning margin wasn't big enough. Therefore, he didn't have the power to do anything in this ridiculous state of affairs called democracy. That's why Theresa May, by the way, called an election, because she needed power, she needed mandate, she needs to be more dictatorial to get things through.
But I think we've discussed this before. She just was not marketable. I mean, if you look at her personality, she was robotic. If you
a career politician, which is why she was useless, because career politicians cannot be leaders.
No, she wasn't. She did have quite a long career in politics, but she didn't come straight out of university and then go into politics. She did go and work on the board of a couple of large companies, I believe. So I would have to. I'm hesitant.
A glittering career there.
Well, who knows? But the thing is, I mean, when you look at someone like Margaret, well, you see, whereas Margaret Thatcher actually did have a personality. She was hard. She never really came across as ladylike. Or
she wasn't a classical politician. In fact, she viewed her cabinet as idiots. Did you know that? She called them the group of idiots.
Well, I've got no doubt she would have done. But you see, she was very in touch with what was going on the high street. I mean, I think she was the daughter of a grocer anyway. So she always knew what the price of milk was or the price of bread was and things like this. And so she made us. So she, by being so aware of that, when she actually made certain decisions, she would base it on that sort of level, I suppose.
She used the power of her personality and the power of authenticity. I remember being present at a talk given by Gorbachev in the presence of Mrs. Thatcher about 12 or 13 years ago, and he said that whatever he did, Margaret Thatcher had always made him feel that he was making the wrong decision. And even at that point, he looked at her anxiously as she stared up at him from the audience. Can you imagine Theresa May having that effect on anyone?
No, she doesn't. Look, I think the job was too big for her. I think she wanted to be Prime Minister and then realised...
are not politicians.
No, they're salesmen. But she didn't sell it. So, yeah, leaders are salespeople. They're not the best qualified. They're not necessarily the best qualified. They're not necessarily the smartest. They're not necessarily even the best leaders. They're the ones who the market, and it's back. And again, it comes down to being marketable, which is an evaluation of whether how well is the market going to respond to you.
No, you're talking about politicians, not leaders, because politicians have to be elected. So you're saying how marketable a politician is. Leaders don't have to be marketable.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They have to be more so marketable. They are packaged so well for that. I mean, even look at Jeremy Corbyn right now has been packaged.
Yeah, it's politics again. An effective leader is irrespective of marketability because
a state leader is not necessarily the best leader.
A trained leader is the best leader because they know how to lead. Someone who's marketed and packaged isn't necessarily is a politician.
It's the best one that they can sell to the public, who's got a number of skilled assets that they can deliver to the market, and one of them is being able to communicate to the public. Another one is to be able to lead, but it's also being able to are they getting the market response? Because if they're not electable, they're not going to be elected. So they're never going to be state leader.
But the
And it's the same with politicians going for local elections.